What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talk of the Tundra. I am your host, Numac, and joining me once again for another preview pod is Jordan Tresky. Jordan, how you doing?
Doing well. The anger has somewhat subsided. I cannot speak. Um, Packers are back from London. We will never talk about London again until 5 minutes from now.
Until
But
five,
yeah, I'm
yeah,
I'm doing pretty well.
until we talk about it for the next 15 minutes as we begin this pod, and before I write about it in Substack, which if you're listening to this now, the Substack should be live. Go read it, breaking down in words the Giants win over the Packers this past Sunday, handing out the cheeses, and the preview of this coming week's game, which is the other New York team, the New York Football Jets. They're coming into Green Bay on a quote unquote winning streak. Two games. They beat the Steelers. The Kenny Pickett second half led Steelers 2 weeks ago. And they trounced the injured Dolphins last week. The Dolphins were missing a lot of their key players, including Tyreek Hill and obviously Tua. They beat them 40-17. So the Jets riding high with Zach Wilson back healthy and Garrett Wilson doing some great things for them, along with Elijah Moore, Brees Hall. Just a team with nothing to lose. So before we get into that, couple of promotions to get into. This week, Adam and Andrew wrapped up their Brewers season, going over some of President of Baseball Operations David Stearns' quotes from their media day that happened on Tuesday. It's something. If you want to
It
hear,
was eventful.
it was eventful. It was so great. The goal to that is they did a great job, and they said that'll be their last pod for a couple of weeks as they take a little break as the Buck season starts back up and they let the World Series and the postseason play out. Tomorrow or today, if you're listening to it, the Win in Six and Eurostep boys are going to be recording an over/under pod, previewing the NBA Bucks season. Isn't that right, Jordan?
Yes, it is. I get to talk about present day Bucks, which is at this point I have to ramp up and actually talk about current things. Current events,
Current
if you
events.
will.
And then once again, Andrew and Adam released a Make Time for This pod. If you haven't heard of Make Time for This, that's GSPN's sort of pop culture and other things pod, their drunk drawer pod, if you will. And it's on Moonage Daydream, the David Bowie, I believe it's new movie. Like it's like a not a mockumentary, but it's like a normal movie about David Bowie's life. And they go over their favorite David Bowie songs. So as always, a lot of good stuff happening on the Eurostep Podcast Network. Should we hand out some cheese, Jordan?
Let's hand out some cheese.
It was slim pickings this week for cheese. It was not a good showing from a lot of the Packers.
No.
Some might say it was abysmal even.
Yeah.
But there is some brief highlights to get into. All these people are earning one slice of Munster, one cheese if you may. First up is Randall Cobb, 6 catches, 99 yards on I think it was 13 targets, so he was clearly the favorite from Rodgers on Sunday, which somewhat doesn't surprise me given that Rodgers pined for Cobb to be back in the organization last year. So, or I'm sorry, 7 receptions, 99 yards. So he earns his first cheese of the season. Definitely well earned, given that he's been doing so well for them all year. Definitely about time he got one. Preston Smith earned a cheese as well, his third. He had a sack and another half sack taken away from him on a penalty. Overall, just been a really solid part of the Packers defense that's been sort of up and down all year long, as we'll talk about a little later. But yeah, one total sack, and he had, if I can find it, 4 total tackles, 3 solo tackles. So another good game from Preston Smith. And then 2 linemen, John Runyon and Elton Jenkins, both didn't allow a QB hurry, pressure, or anything like that throughout the game, and had pretty good passing and run blocking grades from PFF. So ought to give them their cheese as well. John Runyon's first, EJ's second. So what do you think, Jordan?
kudos to the people that stood out for the right reasons
Exactly.
amid the carnage that was London.
We to give a peek behind the curtain for you listeners, Jordan and I talked pre-pod about Rasul Douglas and giving him the
Yes.
pod's first infamous Lindbergher cheese, which is a minus cheese, if you will. And going back over the stats, through some of the grades, we felt it was a little bit of like just punching Rasul while he was down because he had three penalties and they were very ill-timed penalties. But the only one that had a real significant impact on the game was the one when it took away the sack from Jaron Reed and Preston Smith, the illegal contact down the field that was an automatic
Yes.
first down on the sack play.
Yeah.
Other than that, he had another holding that was on a Daniel Jones 14, 15-yard run that they accepted, but because it was an automatic first down, they got 5 extra yards. And the other one was the unsportsmanlike conduct where he like wrestling slammed the ball carrier to the ground, which I didn't think was a good call anyways, but that call was pretty close down the other goal line. It didn't really have that big of an impact on the game anyways. They would have been still
No.
right there and still had it wasn't third down or fourth down or anything. It was like second down or first down. So overall, he didn't have any like terrible like wide receivers burning him or he let up a bunch of yards when he was targeted. I think he only had 2 targets his way for like 7 yards. So like in coverage he did fine, but he just had a bunch of penalties that made it look worse than it was, but we didn't want to give him one when there's been worse cornerback games out there, a la like Kevin King in the Bucks championship game a couple years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably to your point, it was beating a dead horse because Rasul Douglas is not the reason why they lost that game. There was a myriad of reasons.
Right, and if you're going to give one to Rasul, you got to give one to a bunch of other defensive players.
Yeah. Maybe you just break out the Limburger for like Kevin King, as you mentioned, or Steven Wordle.
That's going back farther than I want to remember.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe it's a matter. We're early. This is Talk of the Tundra. This is the first year. We're figuring it out. You're along for the ride.
I will say, however, as we again talked about pre-pod, Joe Barry and company on the defensive side of the coaching staff are getting awfully close to getting a Lindbergher, and we'll get into that more later. But I'm not afraid to hand out Lindbergher cheeses to an entire coaching staff on defense if it means saying what I need to say about them.
Our Christmas gifts to them will be the PlayStation 2 versions of NFL Head Coach video game.
I remember that.
That was the time. That was when we knew, sports video games will never be the same. There's a game about being a head coach.
There's a game about coaching a game. Like as if
I guess now that I think about it, I'm assuming that would have been like the modern day like Football Manager.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
Like Madden was ahead of the curve. The gamers weren't ready for that technology yet.
Like we're looking across the pond and there's a Football Manager over there. Let's get Tony Dungy on the cover of this and let's ship it out.
All right. So cheese board as it stands after 5 games now. Aaron Jones and Rashawn Gary are still the leaders with 4. Preston Smith has 3. And then a slew of players have 2. Aaron Rodgers, A.J. Dillon, Devondre Campbell, Elton Jenkins, Jair Alexander, Kenny Clark, Keyshawn Nixon, Pat O'Donnell, Quay Walker, and Romeo Dobbs. And then the players with 1 include Al Lazard, Eric Stokes, Darnell Savage, Jaron Reed, John Runyon, Mason Crosby, Randall Cobb, Rasul Douglas, Rudy Ford, Sammy Watkins, and Zach Tom. So it's fleshing out a bit. We got a lot of players there, which is good to see that it's not just individuals, like a small number of individuals getting awarded that are doing good things. It's sort of being mixed around and spread around, even a nice cheese spread around to have different impact players each game. Now the goal is to have all these impact players do good things every game and not just spread across 5 games so far.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on, before we get into the preview, the injury report, and things like that, Jordan and I want to talk about an article that dropped today from Ben. I think it's Solak, from The Ringer. Ben, if you're listening, which on the off chance you are, I apologize if I pronounced your name wrong. But it was titled, "Are the Packers' issues about scheme or talent?" Yes, which is a very appropriate headline for the article. And Jordan and I both read this today on Wednesday when it dropped, and it was a very, very good breakdown of sort of the Packers' woes so far, sort of what's going wrong and why they look the way they do. Would recommend you go read it. It's a very well done
Yes.
article. It's a little long, but it's very stat heavy, which makes the analysis of those stats make it run long, but it reads fast. Like I read it in 15, 20 minutes, so enough that it gets into the good stuff of explaining what's going on with the Packers. And what Jordan and I both found interesting about it is that the the problem that the Packers are having relies on players and scheme, which breaks it down pretty simply. The issue being is that the defense has the players, not the scheme, and the offense has the scheme, but not the players. And so Ben breaks that down pretty well in explaining why this talented defense that the Packers have with all of these first round picks, the oldest of which being Kenny Clark at 27, is letting up so many yards and losing games the way they have lost them so far. And it's because of Joe Barry's scheme. I'm not gonna read the whole article for you guys. You guys can go read it, but I highlighted a couple um, of paragraphs in Ben's article that stood out to me. Um, in his article, he writes, crossing routes have especially caused the Packers issues. In zone coverage, Green Bay has allowed 134.3 passing rating to opposing quarterbacks on plays with at least one crossing route. Only the Steelers are worse. If you put the Packers in man coverage, they're the sixth best, but only have 9 snaps in that sample, which has been the thing that fans have been yelling about.
Play man feels like this feels a very like early bud discussion with the Bucks. The biggest caveat I would add here is that the Bucks defense was number one in Bud's first 2 years,
Right.
and under Joe Barry, it's
It's
what's the
bad.
right word? It's certainly underperforming, mediocre.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, again, the context of this coming after a game in which they gave up 27 points against the Giants in London. Yes, circumstances pick that apart. It came after another week where they gave up 24 points against the Patriots and a third straight quarterback. And granted, one of those touchdowns was a pick six at the end of the first half that the Packers just gave up. But it also just kind of their defense, especially in the Buccaneers game, kept them in for such a long time. But it's also against another underperforming offense that is having a lot of not all similar issues, but there's certainly some you know differences and similarities that you can draw between Tampa Bay and Green Bay. Yeah, I again, it's I don't know. You obviously have more passages to go through, so I won't
Oh,
bore you with details.
no, that's fine. Going back to how the Bucks were ranked like first in defense in Bud's first couple of years. Um, Ben writes in his article that the Packers are 22nd in uh, DVOA, which is
Yes.
defense adjusted value over average, basically like a attempt at a catch-all um, defensive metric for football, and um, 19th in expected points added per play allowed. So they're allowing more points per play than is good, essentially. Like they're the 19th worst team. And then, or 19th best team, 11th, or I
Yeah.
can't do math. It's on 11. But whatever it is, that was last year. And then 5 games into this year, the Packers defense is 23rd in DVOA and 16th in EPA. So
Largely the same,
largely the same, a little better,
even
but still bad.
smaller sample.
So like there it's we have these players, we have really good players. We're just not the scheme isn't working clearly. So another one, and this was a big talking point against I think in the Buccaneers game is what it was when the Packers' third down percentage was like really good. We weren't allowing any third down conversions over like 6 or 7 yards, things like that. But Ben found a really good um, stat to sort of showcase that that's kind of misleading. So on third down, the Packers' success rate for stopping teams from achieving that first down and not having to punt is 70.7%. First in first in the league. And then their rushing success rate on third down, which is what they've had problems doing all year, is 30%, 30.8, good for 27th in the league. And their pass success rate on third down is 75%, first in the league. But the issue is that they are near last on first down pass rate success, meaning they allow first downs via the pass, second worst in the league, and allow first downs on second down via the rush, second worst in the league, at 44% for the rush, 51% on the pass. So, what this all means, Jordan, is that the Packers are really good on third down if they get there.
Yeah.
And they're just not getting there. And that's where all these long drives are coming from at the end of games, at the end of halves, where we see it's like, man, they look really good on third down when they get there. But if you're not letting the offense have to execute on third down, well, of course you're going to look good. Like maybe they send more pressure when they get to the third down, but at this point they're just not executing well enough to be able to force third downs. There's first downs being made on first down. There's first downs being made on second down, which is then resets this counter as sort of a perpetual vicious cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. And the article gets into just like how static it is in Green Bay, whereas you're looking at other disciples of Brandon Staley, who's now the head coach of the Chargers.
Right.
He was in Los Angeles. Joe Barry was under him when Staley was a defensive coordinator there. And there's two other people that have.
There's a couple.
I assume, and along with one of those, I believe was a Packers assistant last year, maybe they looked into him be a defense coordinator. I cannot remember. It's
Aubrey Pleasant, and I'm gonna butcher this guy's name. I apologize. Ejiro Evero.
That's it.
Yeah.
I think he was in Green Bay last year, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, all those guys came from the Brandon Staley Rams coaching tree a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Or they interviewed him when they were looking for a new D coordinator. That might be what it was. But yeah, it goes into just, what are they doing differently? They come out from the same set of principles, but it's not always the kind of chalk things that you see
right
with the Packers defensively that just kind of keeps reoccurring, time and time again.
Right. And to go into one of these next paragraphs, it's so, I guess, frustrating is that we'll talk about this later about Joe Barry not being aggressive on defense, is that the Packers lead the league in blitz rate on first and second down at 43.2%, according to Ben's article. But the Packers aren't quote unquote blitzing. They very rarely play in their base defense of 3-4, where you have Jaron Reed, Kenny Clark, and Dean Lowry being the main guys rushing. They are almost always having 5 guys rush the line with Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith off the edge. And so of like for that defensive scheme, they're always rushing 5. The Packers are, I think, last. I didn't have don't have. Oh yeah, the Packers don't have a defensive back with more than 4 pass rushing snaps this season. And when you have Devondre Campbell and Quay Walker sort of playing the middle of the field at their backer positions, you're not getting pressure anywhere else if you're not having any of the secondary blitz either. And that's where we are going to talk about later is that they need to be more aggressive. It's frankly maddening.
Well, I think it's not even just the need to be aggressive. You go into this year and you see across the defensive side of the ball, like things are very balanced. But I think even at some point we probably talked about just like it is on the shoulders of Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith to generate a pass rush attack because it gets thin very quickly, and you're not necessarily, you're Jonathan Garvin and me. We saw a little bit of him, and I think he had a couple of good plays too in London. But like beyond that, it's pretty bare bones. Like even the line. Devontae Wyatt was inactive against Giants. TJ Slaton had some moments as well, but that's the thing is that like it's not necessarily about it's obviously it's like a symbiosis, if you will, between the scheme and the fact that these guys are on the field whenever the defense is on the field all the time. There's not a lot of rotation.
No.
So I think that's where the Packers are getting a lot. I mean, saw it in that second half against Giants. They were on the field way too long, and it was just a moot point after their best defense was their offense.
Exactly.
That's what it should have been, but that obviously was not the case.
And then I don't mean, like I said, I'm not trying to read the entire article to you guys, but the Ben goes on to talk about how the Packers just don't run stunts or twists or change where the rush is coming from. It's very all right, if you see the 5 guys lining up at the line, those are the 5 guys coming. You don't see like Rashawn Gary fake go on the edge and then come up through the A gap or something, or something with Preston Smith, or having Kenny Clark go outside to come attack the quarterback that way. It just doesn't happen like that. Like Kenny Clark has been really good. He's been using swim moves to get by interior linemen all season. He had a great one on Sunday against the Giants where he threw the center away like he was one of the tackling dummies at practice. Like he's just a really talented defensive lineman. But why not mix up where he can use his talents just to give the defense a second look so they don't know what they're going to do what you're going to do every play? Because if they know what you're going to do every play, offense becomes a lot easier. That's where that awful crossing route stat that we mentioned earlier comes in. Like, if you're going to let them attack the soft spots in the zone coverage because you know where the pass rush is coming from and you know what sort of defense they're playing in the secondary, then it's just easy pickings. That's how Daniel Jones only has 6 incompletions on Sunday. Like, all credit is due to Daniel Jones. He's having a really good season. But he's not, as, I guess, looking back, maybe he's improved to something that we haven't seen yet. But he shouldn't be performing this well.
It's not even just that. I mean, it's again, we went through it during the preview pod. It's the wide receivers that the Giants are rolling out there that are just gashing them.
Yeah.
So it's just funny, like how things kind of never go away because, again, not a like for like situation in all respects. But this is a big thing about Mike Pettin when he was the D coordinator. Things are just very vanilla.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a Mike Pettin led defense. It's a Joe Barry led defense.
Yeah.
And in both of those instances, it's middle of the road, or you have a very turnovers play a huge part in just like elevating a defense that you necessarily can't bank on year to year. Now we're seeing this year, it's like, okay, they're doing well to when it gets to third down, they're doing well to stop offenses.
Right.
It's just a matter of they're giving way too many new set of downs when it's first down and you just got gashed. It's just like that's the stuff that just
They
I
seemingly
don't know.
play not to lose instead of playing to win. We've said it again and again and
Yes.
again. Either in the Discord, join the Discord. It's a lot of fun in there. On Twitter, on here, anywhere. They just play not to lose, and that's the big fault right now. Is they're not implementing ways to win. I'll let you guys go read the article for the defensive way as to how to fix that. But jumping to the offense a little bit, and we'll talk about more of this later as well because it kind of plays into what we expect for the preview stuff. But some stats on Rodgers this season is a little concerning. His numbers have significantly dropped off from his 2 MVP seasons. His completion percentage from last year is down 14 points from 67.5 to 53.4. His inaccuracy percentage is up 7 points from 17 to 24. His yards per dropback is down a full 2 yards from 7.88 to 5.91. And he's getting pressured only 3% more than he was last year, 16 to 19. So whether Devontae Adams is really worth those 2 yards and really worth that 14% in completion percentage, you won't hear me saying that. is a whole argument in and of itself. But the problem with sort of where we've come as the Packers offense and as a franchise is that we've had let Rodgers take the reins on the offense for so long, for a really long time, because he had the talent to. He had the Devontae Adams to throw to play that sort of two-man game that they've been doing, which was ultimately sort of their downfall in the playoffs last year. But giving him such the long leash because he deserved it, and being able to audible at the line and call the plays he wants to do and be that significant presence in the offensive game plan calling, is sort of coming back to bite the Packers right now. They, before their game last week, Rodgers said they really wanted to air out the ball, get the passing game more involved. And I couldn't help but think of that quote on the critical 3-and-out in the fourth quarter when there was 10 minutes left in the game. It was 2020. They needed to go down the field and waste time. And they wasted 16 seconds off that clock with 3 incompletions when they needed to run the ball. Coincidentally, we'll get into it later. I keep saying that, but we will. Is that now they're looking to get the run game in more, which they should have been doing all season. But the scheme is there from Matt LaFleur, and they should be able to get crossing routes going. And what they really ought to do is run routes for these receivers for Rodgers to be a game manager rather than the MVP level game-changing quarterback that he's used to being for the past decade. Because while he may not be as good as he's been in previous years on deep balls, he still has accuracy. Like we've seen that so far this year, that he's able to put balls in tight windows on crossing routes and sort of some out routes like that. So why not let him make it, like, just make the game easier for Rodgers if he's having that sort of that down year and he's getting a little older and it's showing. The movement in the NFL is to make this game easier for quarterbacks. That was the Matthew Stafford. That's all they won last year. Just let Cooper Kupp do the work. Let Odell Beckham do the work, and it led him to a Super Bowl. Instead, we're asking Rodgers to do more difficult things with less talented receivers.
My counter, not necessarily to you, but to Aaron Rodgers, is does he want to make it easier for himself?
He does.
Because this is, and I believe Ben touches on this, this is old habits dying hard.
Yep.
And not having Devontae certainly doesn't help. But it's not, I mean, you go through, Randall Cobb was, 13 targets against the Giants. He has been a much more featured contributor in the offense, obviously within the pass catching core. again, leaning on experienced wide receivers, something that Aaron Rodgers has harped on from the moment that he has gotten sizable contracts and became a leader of this team. But it's not just a Rodgers thing because, as you said, Matt LaFleur has a scheme. Part of the reason why the roster is built the way it is because Matt LaFleur is in charge.
Yep.
If I was on the podcast Sunday/Monday, I would have been just going through this meltdown, talking about that 3-0 because it just pissed me off so much.
Me too.
It's more. I think it's just this thing of like you. It's this constant reflex. The first game of the season, they get it. It wasn't like a shellacking, but they got obliterated by the Vikings. And the biggest talking point is there wasn't enough of AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones and all this stuff. So naturally they reflex and go the other way. And it's just this constant seesaw effect of like you veer off from how you wanted to build this team and how it's built. And yes, Ben notes in the article, the formations, I think the pony packages, I think that's the official.
Yep.
Those have not been well. Or
the two running back sets.
Two running back sets, yes. So again, that's also kind of creating the source of tension is that you want to get both guys featured in the running game, but they can't necessarily be on the field together because the Packers wide receiver core doesn't have a Devontae Adams or dynamic pass catchers that can take some of the attention away from the Packers backfield.
Right.
Or so there's these constant sources of tension, not just on the field, but what Matt LaFleur wants to play and how Aaron Rodgers may, take ownership of a drive when a game is tied or whatever the game situation might be. There's these little touch points everywhere that you just kind of like, how does this get massaged into the offense is going to be productive? We're not going to cough out the ball. We're not going to, kill drives with just awful turnovers that, take points off the board, what would be points off the board. It's that stuff that has just kind of added up, obviously, over the course of the season that is making it just again, it's just frustrating.
It's making the offense more difficult.
Yes.
Like I think your point of the seesaw effect of the offense and how it operates has been awful. And it's been prevalent. I have I have Aaron Jones's stats pulled up from each of the 5 games this season. Week 1 against the Vikings, 49 yards rushing, 27 yards receiving. So 80-ish yards loss. Week 2 against the Bears, 130 yards rushing, 38 yards receiving. Win. Week 3 against Tampa, 36 yards rushing, 11 yards receiving. They basically went away from him in the run after he fumbled. They won the game. They probably shouldn't have, if we're being realistic.
No one should have won the game.
No one should have won the game, but the Packers certainly did. They got the win. It was an ugly win. It was a bad win, if there are such things. But you guys get my point. Week 4, offense is sort of clicking again. They had Aaron Jones, 110 yards rushing, only 5 yards receiving, but he was a big part of the offense. They won. Week 5 against the Giants, 63 yards rushing, 17 yards receiving. So basically, what's that? 80 yards. So if we're seesawing, we should have a huge Aaron Jones game this week, which makes sense because they understand that the running game is what leads them to success. They said it today. Zach Cruz tweeted a little bit earlier today. Aaron Rodgers, quote, "When we run the ball well and stick to it, that's going to give us more opportunities for some shots down the field." Like, obviously, you guys, like we've been saying it. It's so frustrating as a fan, and as someone we've talked about it. Set up the run so that the passing game opens up. Like the the field is shrinking is from is what Ben is saying. They're not taking shots downfield and they're not having success in like their middle to long game passing attempts. So everything's really short, and the defense knows they're going to throw it short. So why
Mm.
not just keep running the ball when it works? Like it clearly works. I haven't seen like a drive this season where it's been like, man, why are we rushing AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones? It's not working. Start passing the ball. Like we just haven't seen it, and then they go away from it. And there's obviously times you need to go away from it for clock management standpoint, but that hasn't happened. So in totality, overall, go read Ben's article. We gave a lot of airtime here. It's really good. Um, so go read it for
It's a
yourself.
perfect.
It's a perfect
It's the
encapsulation.
yeah. It's like a state of the union address, I guess, in through 5 weeks of the Packers 2022 season.
Right. Which is like, should we really be all that concerned? There's 12 more games. Probably not. But
First third of the year, though.
first third of the year, and it's not looking too good. Like,
No.
they could run off 12 straight wins and make us eat crow. I'll be happy to eat crow if that happens. But changes need to be implemented now.
And I think to kind of wrap this up and um, as we start to look ahead, the Packers have had horrible losses in the LaFleur era, as few as there have been.
Yep.
There was 2 years ago, I think this is the COVID year, the Jaguars lost, which was just absolutely abysmal. The Jaguars were not a professional football team then. They're slowly starting to resemble one again. Last year, I believe it wasn't the Lions game. Obviously, well, you could just say the Saints game. Obviously, week one, it's just hard to fathom that kind of a beatdown.
Yep.
Going into the season when pretty much everyone was healthy outside of like David Bakhtiari, and you could even say that they had more of a talented roster than with obviously Devontae Adams.
Mm-hmm.
So there have been these bad losses that have just been like, okay, again, the seesaw effect, the reflex of like that can't happen again. So let's put it all together and rattle off a 10-game winning streak, I hope.
Right.
But I think this one definitely feels different because things are very in flux, and it's still hard to see where things could turn around consistently.
Right. These losses feel different because the wins don't feel good.
No.
The wins feel like
The best
bad
one has been the
almost.
Bears game, and even then
It got close at the end.
Yeah.
Like the losses have been, or the wins have been close, and the losses have been tragic, essentially. Like there's been no reason to feel good after a game this year, which has been sort of our harping point in our score predictions. So should we look ahead, Jordan?
Let's do it.
Jets coming into Green Bay.
Boom,
Hopefully,
boom, boom.
hopefully, the Packers can stop them from touching down in Green Bay. That's my pun for the podcast. But injury report, we'll hop into that right away. As opposed to last week, where both teams' injury reports were quite extensive. This week, pretty short for both of them. Dave Bakhtiari, limited participation in practice with his knee. Obviously, that's been the same thing. We don't say that with Elton Jenkins, also limited, which was interesting considering they both got limited participation on the same day. So far, this season, it's been flip-flopped.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's leading towards them actually becoming both healthy and not pushing them to get back. So, Tipa Galay, I think is how you pronounce his last name. Hamstring did not participate in practice. Christian Watson, hamstring, did not participate in practice. It's the same hamstring he's had since camp. Some people were saying they should put Watson on IR. I would feel bad to put him on IR, but I think it might be the right decision.
Interjection, because this is obviously relevant.
Yep.
This would be the last week before Sammy Watkins can come back, correct? Because before the Buccaneers game.
Was it before the Buccaneers game? So
Yes.
Buccaneers, Patriots, Giants, Jets. So
So I think
maybe,
so maybe.
so maybe, yeah. If they want to get Watkins back and he's healthy to come back, like, and then put Watson IR, it'd be annoying to not have a fully healthy receiving room again. But if
Hmm.
you're going to deal with this with Christian Watson, why
And a
not
kick
get him
returner.
healthy? And yeah, and why not just get him healthy for the last push of the season? Because they'll be at what? This will be their sixth game now. Four more games is 10. They'll have the last 7 games to really make a push if they want to get Christian Watson healthy. But I think you don't put him on IR if Watkins isn't back,
Yeah.
which then it's playing a dangerous game too, counting on Sammy Watkins to be healthy again too. So, but the biggest name on this injury report is Aaron Rodgers. Right thumb injury, did not participate in practice. More so, probably veteran status, doesn't need to have practice, although he might, maybe he should. But he injured his right thumb on the Hail Mary pass that was stripped, and like the strip sack, whatever you want to call that. So that just is salt in the wound for Rodgers not to be able to get that pass off, but also get injured on it to lose the game. LaFleur said he doesn't anticipate him missing the game, so that's good.
That
Uh,
is certainly good.
maybe we'll have more Jordan Love the right later this season, but let's not count on it. For the Jets, they had Dwayne Brown, their offensive tackle, limited in participation. Jermaine Johnson, their end, did not participate with an ankle. Carl Lawson, C.J. Mosley, and Quincy Williams all limited with an ankle, hip, and ankle injury. So pretty healthy for both teams for all intents and purposes
The shortest injury report for the Packers
this
this season
season.
by far.
And I guess I can't say for the Jets too, but for sure for the Packers, it's been
Yeah.
the shortest. But the Jets come in hot. They've won back-to-back games against the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Miami Dolphins, both of which talent level that was playing isn't the best, but it's still 2 wins in a row. Zach Wilson is throwing the ball a little better than he's been known to do just in general. In the Steelers game, he had 250 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. In the Dolphins game, he had 210 yards. Looks like um, a lot of their. Oh, and he caught a receiving touchdown. And
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
he grittied all over the place.
He's got Joe Flacco to light a fire up his butt because there's a quarterback controversy brewing in
Yeah,
the Big Apple.
I would just let Zach Wilson do it if they're gonna keep winning. Um, but yeah, overall Zach Wilson playing fine. He's playing better than he did last year.
Yeah.
After he was injured to start the year, and I think if he's gonna keep winning, if they win this week, we'll be on meltdown mode. But if he's winning against bad teams, why not just let him keep winning against bad teams and get that
Mhm.
development? Because as we've seen, like letting guys like develop is important. Geno Smith is like prime A example in the NFL right now. Like was backup for so long, including playing for the Jets. And now he's, I
Yes.
think, 31, 32, and the Seahawks had the best offense in the NFL. Which is crazy to say, coming off of a Russell Wilson led team from last year, but
Mr. Unlimited, who looks quite limited in Denver.
Broncos country, let's cry.
Let's
It's Broncos looking rough, man. Nathaniel Hackett does not look
This
like a
year
head
is
coach.
weird. This year is weird. It's a
Hackett
weird
looks
year.
unfit as a head coach.
I don't want to go into like the intangibles, but when you like look at a head coach, an NFL head coach that the camera angle goes to,
Yeah, not good.
I'm personally saying this. If I was shown on the sidelines, I think everybody would be like, "Who the hell is this guy?" So
That's funny.
that's where I'm coming from.
Right,
So when I see someone else that looks like that, I'm just like, "You don't got it, bud."
right. So let's talk a little bit about. We're kind of going to touch on the same thing. Touch on the same thing we touched on earlier and sort of have in past weeks. But offense going into this week, we have Romeo Dobbs, Alan Lazard, Robert Tunyon, Jones and Dillon, and probably Rodgers. Like count on Rodgers playing the game essentially. The biggest thing that we've been harping all season is get the run game going. Teams are having somewhat success running against the New York Giants. Raheem Mostert had 113 yards on 18 carries last week. Najee Harris was somewhat kept in check against them, only had 75 yards. But you can run the ball against the Jets. They're not going to be super like aggressive and oppressive as a team running the ball. So this Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon tandem, not in the pony set, just a single back set, sort of play them off of each other, should have success this week.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Um, again, it's not a matter of just like the results are there. It is the commitment. I think that was the other thing that we talked to last week about the offense's ability to generate explosive plays. We probably should have talked about this or mentioned this in the discussion before, but it's relevant here. I would reckon to guess. I'm not breaking down film every game. I don't simply have time to do that with my life. But I would venture to guess a lot of those plays are born out of a balance, a diversity in what the Packers are calling in their plays. It's not necessarily about when you think of explosive plays and the fact that it's passes beyond 20 yards or rushes beyond 10 yards. It's not just like we're just running and gunning and chucking downfield as whenever we get the chance. It's kind of that like quiet, loud jab, haymaker. Like you can't. It doesn't work without one or the other. So when you are one dimensional and just conversely, it's how we could talk about the Packers defense. When you see the same things over and over again, you get used to how this thing gets broken down. So I think that's where, for me, it's like the results are there. The Aaron Jones has been having a great season. He's their MVP of the year for me at this point by far. And it's just keep running him, keep try to, elevate AJ Dillon, kind of get through this rocky start and his usage and just all these different things that kind of have gone into this season. And yeah, maybe luck goes your way with the defense and stuff like that. But it just also starts with the more you run the ball, the more you burn the clock and the less your defense is on the field.
Right. And I think that's a really big theme and issue that the Packers need to deal with. They have to have long, sustained drives so that when the defense is resting, they can actually rest. And they just aren't going back on the field right away. Because then if Joe Barry isn't going to play call a defensive game to win the game, it is play not to lose, you have to have your defense as rested as possible. If you're just going to call feeble, meek plays every game for defense, it's just as simple as that. So it's not to say I'm blaming the offense for not staying on the field for the defensive woes, but it goes into it.
I would blame the offense second half of that Giants game.
I would agree.
Especially that
but season long issues.
Of course.
Yeah, the offense is certainly to blame for not calling the offense and Matt LaFleur for not calling a game that allowed the defense to take a breath.
Yeah, I think this might be controversial to some, but I would say by and large, the offense has not helped the Packers defense a lot this year.
No.
And that's part of, again, those turnovers are very fluky, but they are what they are.
Right.
And you kind of have to respond to that and limit the mistakes even further, stop the bleeding, and not let up points on the board.
Right. So ideally, we see a lot of Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon this game. They've gone away from AJ Dillon in the past game, in general. I think I saw it somewhere. It was I'm going to butcher this man's name. JJ Zachariason said per Next Gen Stats, AJ Dillon played a season low 31% of snaps against the Giants. His previous low His previous season low was 50% in week 1, and his target share has gone down each week this year. 17% of the passing targets went to AJ Dillon week 1, then 12, 9, 6, and 0. Good thing is you can't get lower than 0. But um, targeting AJ Dillon in the receiving game needs to come back. He's good. He can't catch the ball. They just need to feature these guys more, which has been.
And it would just prevent defenses thinking that he's just going to be running the ball every time he's on the field.
Exactly. Like, it's not that we just want the Packers to run the ball. We do. But we want the best players getting the ball in their hands. And right now, that is Aaron Jones, Alan Lazard, Dobbs, and AJ Dillon. Playing around with like Randall Cobb, which he's been really good this season. We talked about how he's pretty much Wes Matthews of this Bucs team, and the fact that you want to be able to count on him when you need him, but he shouldn't be counted on to do it. So don't mess around and give Randall another 13 targets this week. Bobby Tunyon is another one. Like, he's doing very well this season, but he's not the playmaker that we want him to be yet. And I just like, if we are going to play Christian Watson, I don't need to see the gadget plays. I really don't. I want Watson involved. I want him involved down the field on slants, on crossing routes, to catch the ball and use that speed to get away, or just have him take a shot down the field. He's fast. Like,
yeah,
I maybe I've missed a play here and there, but I haven't seen them take a shot with him since that week 1 Minnesota attempt. And it's, again, I'm pretty sure I have.
There might be one, but again, that's still not great. They're almost like typecasting him as like this. I know we keep saying like the Amari Rodgers thing, but it's also like Tavon Austin.
Yeah.
That kind of thing of like, yeah, he has speed. It's not necessarily east-west speed, it's north-south speed.
Yeah.
And that could go really well. If you're having trouble with Aaron Rodgers' deep ball percentage and completion percentage and stuff like that, maybe have a guy that can
go get it,
run the lights out. Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
Christian Watson is like basically going to be Marquez Valdez-Scantling when he develops as a receiver. They're the same thing. They're fast, they can stretch the field, and they might have a tiny bit of a drop issue. But don't focus on the last part.
That didn't stop you from
bombing it to Marquez Valdez-Scantling 5 times a game. Like, take the shots and use Christian Watson the way you can.
If that works 60% of the time, that's it works every time.
I knew you were going there. I knew you were going there. But yeah, I really want to see a run first offensive scheme this week, and hopefully just see a better Rodgers game, man. Like, he's looked so bad. I just want, like, I've said in the past couple score predictions that I just want a blowout. I want them to beat bad teams. I want this offense to look how it should. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Devonta Adams was this offense, because he wasn't. Like, the offense has the capability of being an explosive offense. We talked about it last week on the preview pod. The Packers are doing very well in explosive plays. And they're balanced. But when they're not balanced is where they're getting in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Is he the player to watch?
I think Rodgers might be the player to watch.
It's hard not to.
It's hard not to. Not watching the ball is very difficult in the NFL, and Rodgers has the ball in his hands a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing how he performs is going to be very important, as it is every week. But a 6th straight week of okay Rodgers like stuff is going to be then, I think, the trend for the season. Which, if it is, so be it. Father Time is undefeated. I just thought we had more years left of it, but we'll see. If it is just the receiving core not being as talented as we want them to be, that's yet to be seen. I'd like to see the whole season get there before I actually make that assertion, because they are rookies, and this is like Alan Lazard's still doing well. He's just not being featured and thrown to as much as you would want a wide receiver one being thrown to. Like, against the Giants or against the Patriots, he was, but he had a touchdown and I think like 3 receptions against the Giants. Mm-hmm. So they're just not mixing him in if he's not
a Giants team that had injuries to the secondary during the game.
Right. And Like, is that a Lazard problem if he's not getting separation? I don't know. But I haven't ever seen Rodgers be that conservative to where he's not trying to fit the ball in really tight windows like that. Like, at least take the shot, you know? But
Hmm.
anything else on offense you want to talk about?
Well, I think my player is definitely Aaron Jones.
Okay.
I think it's because it if he is not featured as much, if it's week 5 and week 1 Aaron Jones game versus weeks 2 through 4,
Yeah.
it affects the whole offense. It affects Aaron Rodgers most, and just the whole game management, and just all that kind of stuff. And so it's the trickle down effect of like, yeah, you want to see Aaron Jones bust out 180 yards and 3 touchdowns. Not that I'm predicting that, but I just think it's the biggest bellwether facing this Packers team.
Right.
Not even just this year, next year,
Right. And
until
I'm
something
yeah.
changes.
And I'm not even saying that like I'm really wanting 100 yards a game from Aaron Jones, and I want him to be the workhorse back that like Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley or uh, Leonard Fournette is. Like, I don't need him to be that. I just need him to be featured.
Yes.
And if he's featured consistently enough and has like an 80-yard game or a 90-yard game, that's fine. But it's when they feature him and then go away from him, and then feature him
Yeah.
a little bit and then go away from him. And when they go away from him, they have bad drives, 3-and-outs, or a first down and a punt. Like, they really should be going to him more often to sustain drives, and then just utilizing the run game more than they are. But we touched on that
Yeah.
already.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So defense, I really want to see them get after Zach Wilson. This is like very surface level expectations and analysis, but it's simple.
Mhm.
Like, Zach Wilson, for as far as I know, isn't the most like mobile quarterback. He's a second year quarterback. He's going to run when he can because he has those legs under him. But um, just being able to pressure this young quarterback who, admittedly, again, has been playing well, but it's going to be important because we have those players on defense that can make his life hell, essentially.
I am in the midst of looking up sacks. 2.4 sacks allowed per game by the Jets this year. So they had a lot of offensive line troubles,
Hmm.
certainly.
They did. I remember. Yeah, I
Um,
remember that.
yeah, during the training camp preseason
I think
portion
they've
of the
lost a
year.
few of their offensive linemen.
Yeah, it was like Becton for sure. That was obviously the biggest one, but like even Dwayne Brown was, I think, a free agent. They signed him, who's
Hmm.
was on the injury report. So yeah, again, I think it's a susceptible offensive line. Um, can Gary and Smith be fresh enough to constantly harass Zach Wilson? That's the biggest question. But
Right.
yeah, you just want to see pressures. You want to see just make them work for it. Just instead of just plodding down the field and be like, oh, another first down, another first down, another first down. That kind of
Right.
thing.
For what it's worth, the pass blocking grades on PFF are bad for the Bengals. 43,
That's
64, 46, 61, 68. Nothing over 70, which is 60s are like a greenish yellow kind of stuff with like 50 being yellow.
yeah,
But so not good. So they're like the front five, as we're going to now apparently see, should be able to get home a few times and affect the game that way. And if they can force Zach Wilson to make poor decisions, Jair, Razul, Eric Stokes should be able to get some pass breakups in there and maybe have an interception or two to really make this game tough for Zach Wilson. I
yeah,
think while he's had a decent couple showings, he's still that young quarterback that's sort of unknown and where we could possibly have a lot of success in just pressuring him, kind of like
turnover
how
prone.
turnover prone and like doing what we wanted to do to Billy Zappi. Like, just make it hard on him. Like football's a tough game. Like really get in his face and make him feel uneasy so that he's pressured to make those throws he can't make, making mistakes and causing turnovers.
Versus the floor.
Yep. Matt LaFleur's brother Mike is the defensive coordinator, I'm pretty sure, or
Offensive.
offensive coordinator. Yeah, Robert Saleh, the head coach, is the defensive coordinator. Well, pseudo defensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Calls defensive plays. So, yeah, just want to see a more aggressive defense. Please, Joe Barry, fix yourself. Admit you were wrong. Play more man. Play less zone. You can play zone. I'm not saying don't go away. Don't play any zone. There's only Siths deal in absolutes, Jordan. All zone,
Exactly.
all man, both bad. Mix it in so that the offense doesn't know what you're playing and they need to audible to find out and run motions and things like that. Like that was, they talk about it a lot on during games. Players go in motion, you don't see a guy follow him, you're in zone. It gets really simple, but at least if you're mixing it up so that you get to keep doing those things, wasting time on the play clock to showcase what you're doing. So, regardless of it all, Joe Barry, please, I'm begging you, my guy. Please change your feathers.
My guy.
Oh, it's just I'm exhausted of the Joe Barry led defense. I'm getting a sour taste in my mouth.
Joey B, come on.
But
Build back better. Yeah.
all right. Looking ahead, should we do some score predictions, Jordan?
Let's
The best
do
part
it.
of this show all the time.
Probably the most accurate part of the podcast.
Weirdly. Because the obscene my New England score prediction was very wrong. But your Giants Packers prediction was eerily close. Really close.
Yeah.
So maybe people should listen to us in their other betting advice. Who knows? This is not betting advice. But we'll have some fun with it. Jordan, you go first. I went first last time.
Now I have expectations. I think this is gonna be a very vanilla game.
It's gross. A vanilla game against the Jets sounds gross.
But what kind of vanilla are we talking about? Are we talking about a regular vanilla? Are we talking about a McDonald's cone? Are we talking about Haagen-Dazs?
A little soft serve vanilla or
soft
vanilla
serve,
bean? French
vanilla bean.
vanilla?
Not that artificial kind. It was actually made with the vanilla bean. Let's go. I'm probably just gonna pick the Packers to win every game. Not true. I'm going to pick the Packers to win this game, though. I think they bounce back. I will go 28-17.
Okay. The last two games, I've predicted blowouts, and they haven't been. So I'm going to switch up my prediction and say it's going to be closer than I want it to be. I think last week I had 30-17, and the week before that I had like 45-10 or something.
Yeah, you wanted it bad.
I wanted it bad. I still want it very bad. Very bad.
It's getting worse.
It's getting worse. I'm thirsty for a blowout. Pause. But let's see. I think they get back on track. And I think the defense still has its problems with Joe Barry and its scheme. 31-24. So, well, no. Yeah, I'll stick with it. But let the record show that if it's a low-scoring game, that I was going to switch it to a lower-scoring game. Because they haven't scored over 24 points yet this year.
I was going to say they haven't. Is that true?
I think it's close.
Ugh.
I think they won 27-10 against the they scored. I'm sorry, they haven't scored over 27. My bad. That's what I wanted to say.
It's 27-14 against the Bears, right?
27-10.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay.
and then 27-24 against the Patriots. So they haven't scored 30 points this year.
Yeah, that's not bad, but it's just
It's worse than it should be. Like, yeah. Because like the
yeah.
second half against the Bears, they should have had a few more touchdowns.
Yeah, talk
The
about a
the
blowout.
second half against the Patriots, they should have more touchdowns. The second half against the Giants, they should have more touchdowns. Like,
Mhm.
it's a trend. So hopefully the Packers can put together a full game of football. We haven't seen them play 4 quarters of good football yet in a row, like in a game essentially.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, Jets, Packers, a noon game. Jordan, we
Finally.
have the early game. How about that?
That I mean,
I've been
and not
begging
just
for it.
not the London early game either.
Yeah, we have a noon game. Wake up, maybe cook a little breakfast, do a little laundry, get ready for football at noon. So, thank you all for listening to a I'll say cathartic episode of Talk of the Tundra. I got a lot of
Mhm.
frustrations out that I had from the Giants game out on Sunday, so we hope you enjoyed it. Please check out the rest of the GSPN network, Win in Six, Eurostep, Make Time for This, Cruising for a Bruising, their latest episode. Uh, Join the Discord. GSPN.info has the form to join the Discord. Leave a 5-star rating and review. We haven't had one in a long while, so if one of you could leave a 5-star rating review, we'd love it. Love to hear what you have to say about the podcast, and I will read it live here on air. Not live. I'll read it on air for everyone to hear, and really hope you guys are enjoying it. As we're like Jordan said earlier, about a third of the way through the inaugural Talk of the Tundra Packers season. So we will talk to you guys on Monday for the recap of the Jets Packers game. Jordan, thanks so much.
Thank you.